Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard brought to you by Grasshopper Bank. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman, and I'm here today with John Arensmeyer, who is founder and CEO of Small Business Majority, an advocacy group for businesses and entrepreneurs. Welcome back, John.
Good to be here, Lauren.
Always good to have you here. John, last week, Stat, a respected publication that covers healthcare, published a report that the cost of health insurance is rising so quickly that a lot of small businesses are just giving up on trying to offer their employees health insurance. Let me read a quick quote from it. Small business owners and workers feel as though most, if not all, of their options are unaffordable, especially if they have plans with high out-of-pocket costs, rising premiums driven by high prices for hospitals, doctors, and prescription drugs, and more intensive care, are eating into bottom lines and paychecks. Desperate companies are getting rid of traditional health benefits at an unprecedented pace. Is that what you're seeing out there as well?
We are seeing that. I mean, we've seen this trend for a long time. You've got costs in the system that are just going up faster than inflation, and small businesses are being hit by them. And, being largely driven by fundamental healthcare costs going up, particularly hospitals. You're seeing more and more hospital consolidation, which is decreasing competition, forcing plans to have hospital groups in them that they might be able to negotiate with if there wasn't so much consolidation. And the inherent costs in the system are just are a real challenge. And for people who decided they didn't want to provide employer-sponsored coverage, there've always been the ACA exchanges. But now with the elimination of the enhanced premium tax credits, those are less attractive because those rates have gone up. Average premiums in the exchanges have gone up 26%. And
let me stop you there for 1 second. We've talked about this before. I think it bears emphasis, as you said here before. A lot of people don't think of the ACA issue as being a small business issue. But as you well know, that's not the case.
Thanks, Lauren, for pointing that out. Over half of all participants in the ACA exchanges are small business owners, employees, or self-employed Americans. And the 4 million of them have dropped off in the last half year. And at least half of those would be in that category of small business. So they're already the inherent costs in the system causing premiums to go up. And now with the elimination of the enhanced premium tax credits, that has caused rates to go up to the extent where people are dropping.
There have always been small businesses that, for whatever reason, didn't offer health insurance. They were too small, or they were new and they were growing and trying to get to a point where they could do it, but hadn't reached that point, and they relied on their employees finding another way, either through the ACA since it's existed, or being on the health plan of a spouse whose employer does offer health insurance. There have always been workarounds like that. Can you give us a sense of how big an issue this is for small businesses? Is this a crisis? Is it, an existential situation? Or is it just one more burden that small businesses are bearing right now among many?
Well, it is definitely one more burden. I mean, prior to the ACA, if you get the life insurance through your employer, and before the ACA, the rate offered by small businesses was coming down. All of a sudden, the ACA arrives, and you have an option. And we love it if as many small businesses as possible could offer group coverage. But for the reasons we just talked about, those rates are going up, and so the exchanges, the ACA marketplaces, provided an option. Not only for individuals who are not connected to a small business, but as we said, for business owners, employees, and solopreneurs who were really impacted in the old system. So yes, the option of the ACA, which has been a boon for small businesses, as a way to get coverage if you can't offer to your employees through the group market, that is now under much more pressure with these tax credits going away.
So, where would you place this along with the other pressures that are affecting small businesses? We could talk about tariffs, we could talk about fuel costs, inflation in general. What is all this doing to the businesses that you guys work with?
Well, definitely want to talk about all of that, but healthcare continues to be the granddaddy of concerns. It's really interesting. I've been at this now for over 20 years, and talking to businesses and looking at the data and hearing the stories, and it has continued to be the single biggest issue and burden, quite frankly, faced by business owners and their employees, and by self-employed people. So, yeah. Did you want to transition into some of the other issues that are there? It's not the only issue.
No. How would you rank the others after the granddaddy?
Yeah, I mean, look, healthcare, it's been consistent over time being a huge issue. I mean, what we've got, we have two issues, well, three really, that have come up in the last year or so that have added to that. One we never used to talk about was just tariffs, and the high tariffs, and even though the administration's ability to impose those tariffs has been clipped by the Supreme Court decision. The tariffs are still high, and any business that is buying products, whether they're importing directly themselves or they're buying products that somebody else imported, is paying higher prices for those imports. Again, we can take usually the fuel costs in the last couple of months because of the Iran war have again affected products across the board, products that have to be shipped either to the small business, from the small business, and that's new. And the immigration policy, which has really hampered the ability of businesses to hire employees because of the heavy ICE enforcement, and has really been a damper as well. So these are three issues that have really risen to the fore in the last year that weren't so big before.
So, as I always ask you, how would you characterize the state of small businesses in the country right now as we, head into the second half of the year?
What we're hearing is continued challenges and struggles. We're hearing revenues, only 50% say that revenues decreased. And yeah, that might mean that 50% is increased, but in fact, normally you'd have more increase than decrease in revenue. 67%, and these are quarterly surveys we do of our network. And the one we released last month, 67% say their business costs have increased. 82% say utility costs, electricity, and natural gas have increased. 88% say the cost of raw goods, et cetera. We've talked about healthcare. So they're struggling, and we haven't seen this since the height of COVID. And the difference is that the problems that they're facing, they're not acts of God. They're not like COVID. They're not. It was something we all were experiencing and had to deal with, and not even like the Great Recession. These are 100% results of decisions that have been made, human-created problems, if you will, and which means that they can be fixed by reversing these policies. Perhaps you can't eliminate all the harm that's been done, but you certainly can stop the bleeding. So that's on the one hand. And by the way, I should add, we're now seeing business optimism numbers below 50%. The latest is 43%. And those numbers were always higher than 50% because the average small business owner is an optimistic person, or they wouldn't be crazy enough to start a business. So the fact that we're seeing 43% optimism is definitely worrisome. The offset to that is there was an article recently talking about how young people are starting businesses more and more. So there's a huge desire, particularly among young people, many of whom are feeling not welcome in the corporate employment space anymore. They want to start small businesses. We saw a lot of this coming out of the pandemic. People wanting to pursue their passion and maybe have more flexibility in their lives. So why do we have a system where they're eager and they're ready to go,
In some ways, John, I think it made more intuitive sense coming out of the pandemic. I mean, people had just been through a traumatic event. A lot of them had spent a lot of time at home and had been looking for something to do. And it was natural to try baking cookies or whatever it was that ended up leading them to actually hang out a shingle and open a business. Now it's kind of interesting because, as you were just explaining to us, there's a lot going against smaller businesses right now. What do you think is driving this interest?
Well, I think changes in the corporate environment, and some of that's driven by AI, are driving that, and they're causing young people to say, "Hey, maybe that's not for me," and I'm excited about starting a business. So,
you mean they're concerned that if they're in the corporate environment, that they may not have a career going forward? Right. So now's the time to try to do something else.
Yeah, and so my point is that's great. And not great that they're having issues in the corporate environment, but it's great that there's this enthusiasm to start businesses. Not only should we fix these problems to help existing businesses, but now we have another reason to fix the problems, which is to create a world out there where when these young people do start businesses, they have a better chance of success. So, we need to recognize that there's this incredible entrepreneurial fervor out there. And that's both people hanging in there with their existing businesses and people wanting to start new businesses. Let's eliminate a lot of these problems and barriers and make it so there's much greater chance of success.
I think you're referring to the barriers we were just talking about, all the things, especially the policy-driven issues that are impacting smaller businesses right now. Are there also structural changes that you'd like to see made that would make it easier for people to test and try and open smaller businesses?
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing this. We start looking at the state and local level. We're all hearing about regulatory reform in the housing space, but there's a need for taking a strong look at regulations at the state and local level, particularly that are getting in the way of businesses thriving. And licensing requirements that have, sort of helped to keep the bigger players in place and kept new entrants out. So there's a lot that can be done to create a more friendly entrepreneurial environment. This is primarily not federal regulations. It's primarily state and local regulations that can be done. The other thing we can do structurally, and this is at the federal as well as the state level, is start addressing some of the concerns around unfair competition and monopolistic power. Because small businesses, there's really an unlevel playing field. When you look at price discrimination, non-compete agreements, you're seeing an environment where big businesses have a much fewer burdens and can take advantage of smaller businesses, franchise relationships, etc. So we need to start dealing with some of these unfair competition issues out there, and so that's a second structural thing we can do.
You see any movement in that direction? I mean, I think you could argue that under this administration, you've seen more movement in the opposite direction thus far. Or do you have any reason for optimism there?
You're right at the federal level, and there's definitely been a retrenchment. But I think at the state and local level, we're seeing more activity. There are more. Antitrust has become a bigger deal in a number of states, California, New York, and we're even seeing it in the Mondami administration in New York City, and an attempt to go out and really sort of set some of these inherent inequities in the system straight. So no, I think we are seeing activity at the state and local level that we're not seeing at the federal level.
I think some people around the country might be a little surprised to hear you citing the mayor of New York as a cause for optimism among business owners. That's not necessarily the view that they've been hearing the most about.
The reality is, as we interact with leaders across the country, many who are termed by the media to be left or progressive, are actually very tuned into the small business needs at the local level. And I will put in a plug for Mandani here. He ran his campaign talking about bodegas and other small business owners in communities in New York. And he's been very aggressive about addressing needs that small businesses have. He's appointed people to his administration who are very tuned in to the needs of small businesses. So you're right. I mean, that's not what you're reading in sort of the big national media. But in fact, what we're finding is that there's more opportunity happening in some of these administrations that are deemed to be more quote unquote progressive. They're actually really looking at what are the needs of the in their communities, and small business is a huge need, and they're addressing it.
What they have heard about is, one, that he wants to control rents, put a cap on rent increases, and he's going to open city-owned grocery stores. Can we live with that, John?
Well, I think that you're looking at ways to cut costs across the board. I don't think that the city-owned grocery stores are going to have a major impact on the bodegas. And I think that, commercial rents are a huge issue in places like New York. And so getting a grip on that is going to be a huge benefit to small businesses.
You think that's the right way to do it? Putting a cap on it?
It hasn't been working pretty well to date. So why not try something that can have an impact, or maybe can drive some changes in the marketplace out there. But I'll tell you right now, the interests of small businesses in these cities is not the same as the interests of big landlords, not the same as private equity firms that have bought up a lot of these buildings. So, I mean, if you want to address the needs of the average person living in a city, you're going to also need to address the needs of small businesses.
You mentioned the changes brought about by the federal housing bill that has passed and become law without the president's signature. Are you optimistic that that's going to make a difference and actually lead to more housing construction?
Yes, I think anything we can do to enhance housing construction, which is going to reduce pressures in these communities, reduce cost pressures, is the right direction to go. And the fact that it was bipartisan was encouraging.
Is it a bill that will actually make a difference? I mean, everybody wanted to be able to make the argument that we're addressing the housing shortage and the price of housing. Will it actually change things, do you think?
I think all of these things are going to have incremental changes. I don't know that it's going to, all of a sudden dramatically alter the landscape, but anything, it's been tough to get policies passed at the federal level. So, and certainly policies that have a positive impact on small businesses and local communities. So anything that they can do is welcome.
The state you used to live in, California, has passed its own changes, and I've heard a good bit of optimism that those will really make a difference there. Have you been following that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening is that people are realizing that we can't continue. And that does require regulatory change and permitting changes. And that's a welcome development.
One that I'm sure we will talk about again in the future. John Arensmeyer is founder and CEO of Small Business Majority. Thanks for taking the time, John.
Thank you, Lauren. Always good chatting with you.
Always my pleasure. And special thanks to our sponsor, Grasshopper Bank. Thanks for listening, everyone.